Hey everyone, welcome to our crash course on standardized testing, specifically its role in college admissions. It's a system that's been around for ages, and it has a huge impact on students, teachers, and, well, pretty much everyone involved in education. Today, we're going to channel our inner debate team captains and dive deep into the pros and cons of standardized testing to help you understand its impact on education. Let's get started. Let's discuss standardized tests. They're said to be fair. Everyone takes the same test, right? It's supposed to be an equalizer. But is it that simple? Critics argue these tests measure test-taking skills, not intelligence. They say tests favor those with better resources. Standardized testing creates a universal standard for education. Think of it like a measuring stick everyone agrees on. This is crucial in college admissions to compare a vast pool of candidates, but it's not that straightforward. Critics argue a single test can't capture the full range of human intelligence. Proponents of standardized testing argue it holds teachers and students accountable for their performance. By setting benchmarks, tests identify areas where students excel and where they need support. Critics argue this focus on accountability can have the opposite effect. When test scores are the primary measure, it can lead to teaching to the test, not fostering a love of learning. Standardized tests provide valuable data on student progress over time. This data paints a more complete picture of a student's academic journey. Critics caution against overemphasizing these scores as the sole indicator of progress. They argue that factors like engagement, creativity, and critical thinking are equally important but not measured by standardized tests. For students from underperforming high schools, standardized tests can provide a crucial opportunity to showcase their academic abilities to colleges and universities. However, critics counter that this argument ignores the systemic inequalities that often plague under-resourced schools. They argue that instead of relying on standardized tests to identify talented students from disadvantaged backgrounds, we should focus on addressing the root causes of educational inequity. The final argument in favor of standardized testing is that it prepares students for the real world, where high-stakes tests are a fact of life. Proponents argue that by exposing students to standardized tests early on, we're equipping them with the skills and experience they need to succeed in these high-pressure situations later in life. Critics, however, contend that this argument normalizes the often arbitrary and stressful nature of standardized testing. Now let's delve into the cons of standardized testing. Standardized tests don't measure intelligence, they measure wealth. Affluent students score higher than less privileged peers, even with similar abilities and preparation. Critics argue this bias undermines fairness, making tests a measure of privilege, not merit. Standardized testing can stifle creativity and innovation in the classroom. Teachers feel pressured to teach to the test, focusing on test-taking strategies and the narrow material likely to appear on the exam. Critics argue this stifles intellectual curiosity and fails to prepare students for real-world complexities. For many students, standardized tests are a source of immense stress and anxiety. The pressure to perform well, coupled with the high stakes involved, can be incredibly overwhelming, leading to test anxiety, sleep deprivation, and even physical symptoms. Critics argue that this emphasis on high-stakes testing creates an unnecessarily stressful and anxiety-ridden learning environment, which can have long-term negative consequences for students' mental health and academic confidence. Standardized test scores often determine school funding, creating a cycle that disadvantages low-income schools. These schools struggle with limited resources, larger class sizes, and more students with special needs. Critics argue this formula punishes schools for their challenges rather than providing needed resources. Standardized tests can be unfair to English language learners and students with learning disabilities. For English language learners, standardized tests present a significant linguistic barrier, making it hard to show their true academic abilities. Critics argue standardized tests ignore diverse learning styles, putting certain groups at a disadvantage. Research suggests standardized tests like the SAT and ACT may not predict future success. These tests offer insight into academic abilities but don't capture work ethic, motivation, or creativity. Critics argue that emphasizing these tests can overshadow other factors contributing to a student's potential. So, there you have it. The good, the bad, and the ugly of standardized testing. Whether you're for or against standardized testing, understanding its pros and cons can help you navigate the education system more effectively. We need to consider the whole student, their unique strengths, challenges, and aspirations. If you need help with test prep or admissions, reach out to one of our expert consultants.